On that front, I pass it off to Don for this week's failures.
Okay.
In
I was preempted by a guest last time, so it's been a couple months since I've been on, and been thinking about a failure that God and the Bible explain too much. And how is that a failure if it explains too much? Well,
I would say attempt to explain.
Attempt to explain, right. So Christians invoke God to explain the creation of the universe. They invoke God to explain the complexity of the cell, or why the DNA is so complicated, or other unexplained facts of science, or anywhere there's a mystery in science, they're quick to say, "Oh, our God explains that." Well, unfortunately, invisible universe-creating sky pixies can explain all that too, to the same level of explanation, and there's about the same level of evidence for that. Invisible universe-creating sky pixies doesn't roll off the tongue so easily as God, than for any God. So, but I digress. Let's talk a little bit about explanatory power. One hypothesis, theory, or explanation can be said to have more explanatory power than another if more facts or observations are accounted for. So they got that one. They can explain everything. If it makes fewer assumptions, no, not so much. If it offers greater predictive power, if you can predict something that's going to happen versus not. If it depends less on authorities and more on observations, If it's more falsifiable, it is testable by observation and experiment. And there are other conditions too, but these are the kind of main ones. And the explanation of God succeeds in one of these dimensions, but then fails miserably on the others. So let's go through a couple scenarios. My wife is sick. I don't have a wife, but my wife is sick. Well, they're going to tell you, God answers all prayers, and then I'm going to go off and pray. Well, she's still sick. And it's not working. Well, then I'll be told God has a plan, and then later on, she dies, say, and then I'm told that God works in mysterious ways, and I just can't understand. When God closes a door somewhere, He opens a window, and so I'm left with nothing. So here, God explains everything, even though nothing is explained.
I always was frustrated by that. Whenever God closes a door, He opens a window. Because first of all, windows are harder to get in and out of than a door.
That's right.
So why were you such a douche that you closed the door and forced me to go out the window? Why didn't you just let me go out the door? If you're okay with me getting out or in, then leave the damn door open.
Right. So as Matt says, apparently God answers all prayers except when He doesn't. Just, covers all the bases. How about another scenario? I'm hungry. God will provide. Enjoy your hunger is the kind of message there. I'd be told, just give in over to the Lord. Let go and let God. Really savor your hunger. And then if I say I'm still hungry, God helps those that help themselves. Go feed yourself and credit God.
Although if I've helped myself, what did I need a God for?
Right, exactly. Right. So a lot of this is sad little cliches or whatever. And let's say I get so hungry that I die. Well, the explanation is God wanted another angel in heaven.
Which I find particularly bizarre. I've said this before. I'm not saying that I'm absolutely correct. There may be a theist out there who can show me this somewhere. Where the hell does it say you become an angel? Now, I came from a Southern Baptist background. You die, you either go to heaven or hell. I'm familiar with doctrines from other Christian denominations. Where did this notion that, I think it's like little babies because people saw pictures of cherubs and just invented something. Find me a spot in the Bible. I'll even expand it out to the Apocrypha just so that maybe we can understand where this came from, where in any way it suggests that anyone, infant or person, becomes an angel. Angels are, within Christendom, fundamentally different creatures. But
it seems like it's a kind of a glurge thing, right? Of evoking all these emotions.
I agree.
making your heart go pitter-pat and all that, and it's just all bullshit.
I agree, but I also know that most believers don't have the first damn clue what their Bible says or what the doctrine is. They know that God is real, Jesus loves them, and that's it. And so when they hear something like, oh, God wanted another angel in heaven, they add that to their particular, syncretism is the merging of two religions. I think there's a version of syncretism that happens with every religion where you merge it with what you'd prefer to believe and what you'd like to believe.
Well, it's like this fan fiction idea that has come up a number of times on the show.
God/Satan.
Right.
I'm sure that slash fiction is out there.
That'd be interesting, wouldn't it? Okay. So let's talk about explanatory power with respect to God. There isn't a thing that can't be attributed to God and his mysterious ways and his whims or whatever, but unfortunately it makes huge assumptions. It offers no predictive power. You can't predict what's going to happen because God is just capricious. It depends on obvious rationalization of authorities that have no real empirical data for what they're saying. It's not falsifiable, as more rationalizations can spackle over any problem. So by explaining everything, God explains nothing. It's a terrible explanation.
Yeah, so, I've talked about before, when we explain something, and explain to me is an important word, which is why I say they're attempting to explain everything. They're not successfully explaining. When we explain things, we explain what we don't understand in terms of what we do understand. And so when you try to stick a God in there to serve as an explanation, you're trying to solve a mystery by appealing to a bigger mystery.
Yes.
One that can be anything. It's a cornucopia. It can do anything, be anything. So of course it meets the sufficient part of a causation, but not the necessary, and it certainly doesn't explain anything.
And there's all sorts of things that are sufficient, right?
Yeah.
You can invent whatever bullshit you want, and
it's all magic.
It's all magic. Magic Man done it. Okay.
Dun, dun, dun.
How about the Bible? Well, a lot of folks say the Bible says it, I believe it, and that settles it.
Which would be much more convincing if they knew what the Bible actually said, but they don't.
There's that, right? Or because the Bible tells me so, or it's in the Bible. Well, and God wrote the Bible, so it must be true, but the Bible itself explains too much. Let's say you have a scenario where you hate somebody. Well, all you have to do is scan through the Bible, and you can find all sorts of places where it talks about, they're an abomination, so you get to kill them. And there's
witches, homosexuals, non-believers,
it's a huge
people
list.
in non-Jewish
it's like 50
nations
or more, and a lot of them are kind of vague. Sowing discontent is an abomination.
People who worship other gods.
That's right. Well, and then you might say, well, you're doing this too. You're doing this, this terrible thing too. And well, then they'll say, oh, that was the Old Testament. Bait and switch. But there's these hermeneutics ideas that one cannot possibly understand the teachings of the saints unless one has a pure mind and is trying to imitate their life.
So let's say there's 4 people who tell me their personal interpretations. How do I know if any of them have a pure mind and have come to the right answer?
Right. It's just
how can I,
with one conversation, right?
How can I, with an impure, imperfect mind, identify which of these 4 minds is pure and perfect? It's a bizarre. It tells you absolutely nothing other than I'm really convinced that I'm right and you're wrong, and I will say that I'm right and you're wrong because I view you as an impure. And if you acknowledge that you are imperfect, then you lose.
Right. Very annoying.
Yes.
Very annoying. Well, what about the scenario of killing somebody? Well, there's the God says thou shalt not kill, but there's all sorts of prescriptions for killing in the Bible. Thou shalt not suffer a witch to live is another one. And of course, God so loved the world that he killed his only son. So why not just, imitate him? It's the sincerest form of flattery, right? Anyway.
Okay, if the Bible had said that imitation was the sincerest form of flattery, I might almost accept that as a. But now it's. Although we have pointed out before that when people like Andrea Yates have killed their kids, that they are following what is a reasonable view based on the doctrine that's in the book.
Prevent them from going to hell. So anyway, so you can find all sorts of rationalizations in the Bible. It explains more than it should. It has conflicting rules and contradictions, and it's not a moral guide. Jeff D. calls it the big book of multiple choice. I've called it a Rorschach test for the morally challenged. So both God and the Bible explain too much, or try to, or pretend to, but they're not convincing to a rationalist. At the end of the day, something that explains everything explains nothing at all. And that means there's no real reason to believe in God or trust the Bible, and that's a failure of Christianity.
I remember commenting, I went to a Catholic funeral, and I wasn't raised Catholic, even though a good portion of my family were Catholics. They were in a Mary-worshipping cult, according to my Southern Baptist upbringings. But I went to a Catholic funeral, and I've never heard the word mystery used more. I've talked about it before, the great mystery of life and its mysterious nature, and God and his mysterious nature has presented us with his mystery, and blah, blah. I mean, I wanted like the Scooby Gang to come in and solve this damn mystery.
Right.
Oh, and I'd have got away with it too.
It's like God's a synonym for ignorance, for our ignorance.
Well, I think if you actually take the time to point that out, as soon as somebody tries to do this God of the gaps type of argument, when they acknowledge that God is something that they don't understand and everything else, please tell me how, just wherever you stuck the word God in there, stick the word magic in and see if you still feel the same way. And then if you don't, you need to explain what is fundamentally different about your understanding of magic than your understanding of God. And, I'm sure people will have, I felt it personally move in my life.
And they have faith and all that, right? So.
Yeah.
Okay, let's take some calls.
Sure.